look around the corporate world and they are spending millions and millions of dollars on the executive training. And you know it before I tell you that generally speaking, it's not working. You have how many trainings you have gone yourself? How many days you have spent? Yeah, you did get some knowledge, you did get some information, but did it change your behavior? Did it change your work style or leadership style? Not much. So it goes back to my philosophy or my understanding that when we look at the average life of a professional, you can segment into two parts. One is the first phase of life, where you start from the elementary, very young age, 5, 6 years, or even earlier. You started to go to elementary school, and then you continue your academic learning journey until you reach to college, university. That's a lot of time. We spend almost 16 to 18 years in learning to start our life. That's first phase. And first phase is all about your IQ, how intelligent you are, how brilliant you are, how hard work you could do. And usually we do a good job over there because we are young. Our brain work very well, very sharply to understand the new things. We come into this world with an empty hard drive, and it's very receptive to fill it up with the information we receive. So the people we encounter in our early life, especially, mainly two groups of people, the teachers and the parents, they have a big influence on our life, because what experts tell us that the personality of a person is mainly built in the first 5, 6 years. That's true. And we don't realize, but all the communication we are doing with those young kids are impacting one way or the other to develop their personality. And by the time they are matured enough, adult enough to really be participate in the active life, they are pretty much done with their personality development. Now, what happens in the second phase of life, once we are done with our academic education and we go into practical field, we start a career, start a job, start a business. And here the journey is very different, because in the first phase, we have been working pretty much on our own. Of course, we have friends, we have colleagues, we have classroom, we have a lot of fun with our friends, but our success in the first phase is not dependent on other people. It all depends on our own intelligence, our own hard work, our own focus on studies. But when you go to the second part of life, second phase of life, and you start work, you are dependent. Your job is not really to get grades. Your job is to deliver results for your employer or for your business. And in order to deliver the results, you need to work with other people. That's a very important difference between the two phases. First phase, we are pretty much on our own. We become independent in our learning. Second phase, you are dependent on other people. In any business, or typically in all businesses, you have to work with other people. Now, what the skills you need to work with other people are mainly related to interactive skills or emotional intelligence. So first phase was the general intelligence, or IQ as we call it. And second phase is emotional intelligence, or EQ as we call it. And this is mainly related to working with other people. How good or how best we are working with other people, that determines our success. Now, there is a lot is dependent on your own intelligence and your own IQ. So IQ remains important. It's not replaced by EQ. It remains important. But in addition to your IQ, you need EQ. You need emotional intelligence and soft skills, communication, mainly your personal brand, your relationship. Unfortunately, even in the advanced academic programs like MBA, we are not taught about these things. We are not taught emotional intelligence formally in any program. And we are just dumped into the practical life. Now, as you see around, some people are very successful in their career and business, some people are not. And it does not relate, it does not have any correlation with the academic performance. Some very bright students have failed in the practical life, and some very not that bright students have shown very well in the practical field. Because, as I said, the criteria is quite different in the practical field. Now, why those people who are not very good in academic records or grades still make very good career? Because somehow the part of their initial development and grooming, they got a good support from their teachers and parents, so they have a good level of personality development. Their natural emotional intelligence is better than other people. It's natural development. In our education system, we don't have that system or contents to develop and groom children or kids on the emotional intelligence part or prepare them for the practical life. We only learn the hard science or hard core subject and don't really pay much attention to the soft skills, which are developed on the basis on your luck, basically, whether you are grown up in a good environment or a bad environment. So the point I would like to make here is related to the training. So first phase of life goes very well, mostly. We spend good time in college, university, school. We have the degrees and certifications, and we are ready to start our life. As I said, that many people have started to struggle when they jump into this phase. And we think that as we have learned in school, college, and universities, we can still learn. So if you are in the practical field and doing a job as a finance manager or a controller, and you have some challenges, you think that if you go and attend some trainings, it will take care of your challenges, right? But in most cases, you keep attending training after training and you don't get much benefit. As I said, knowledge is one part. Information, you get a lot of information through these training programs, but in terms of really creating results, it does not change much with most people. Problem is that the way we try to teach and learn in the first phase and in the second phase should be very different. Because if I go back a little bit in detail to explain this concept, IQ works with our neocortex brain, which is the logical brain, right? So as young kids are growing and developing, their sense of logic increasing significantly because their neocortex or logical brain or left brain is developing very fast. Now, at the same time, the emotional brain or limbic brain is also developing, but it does not really much involve in the day-to-day affairs. When we come into the practical life as a matured adult after completing our academic education, as I said, that we are dumped into a practical environment. And here a lot of emotions are involved. Every day you go through a roller coaster because you are working with a lot of people. Some people are good, some people are not that good, and you need to work with them. You don't have much choice over there. So you are dealing with emotions. You are trying to deal with the emotional intelligence challenges. And there comes the limbic brain or the emotional brain, which really plays a very significant role. Now, another difference between the limbic brain and the neocortex brain, left brain, right brain, or thinking brain, or the emotional brain is that thinking brain is very good to understand logic. So all of our education in the first phase is about logic, things we can understand, right? There is good logic. All the subjects we learn are basically based on logic. Limbic brain has a different structure. Limbic brain does not learn faster with logic. In fact, in the second phase of life, our thinking brain started to slow down a little bit. And when we go to these trainings, the professional trainings on the job, they are basically structured the same way as we have learned in classroom in our student life. And that doesn't work because what we learn on the job is mainly related to our skills, practical skills, like relationship, like creating trust, creating a personal brand, your communication, your influence. These skills are driven by your limbic brain, your motivation, your passion, your inspiration, your commitment, your ability to challenge other people, your fear, your confidence. All these things are based on your strength of emotional intelligence. If you Go to any training programs, whether in a training center in the neighborhood, or you go to Ivy League or any other special training center. These programs are structured by loading the information on you. So you go to even a very advanced level program, which could be 1 week or 2 week program. They try to dump 40 hours or even 80 hours or more on you in one go. They take a lot of material, they take a lot of information and knowledge, squeeze it into some form and try to dump on you. And you are cut off for 5 days. You think that by immersing yourself into those learning, you would learn these things. You do learn, but there is no lasting effect or impact. After even 5 days training, you come back very excited with a lot of information, and you have in your mind, conscious or subconscious mind, that you will start implementing those things. Time passes, and maybe 8 weeks or 3 months or 6 months back afterwards, you are back to where you started. I'm not saying in all cases it happens, but most cases this happens. So I'm trying to bring some science into it, not only opinion, but the science into it. This book, I hope you could see in my hands. This is Primal Leadership by Daniel Goleman. This is one of my favorite leadership book. And in this book, he has explained very well how the limbic brain and neocortex brain work. And I learned a lot. And after that, I incorporated into the structure. But now we are going through practically. So I just want to cross-check with you that is it working or not. So not only the IQ and EQ part, first of all, the type of the learning we are having in this phase is very different. It's about leadership. Executive education is misunderstood. Because if you look at the curriculum, even for Ivy League, who charge a fortune for executive education, they are trying to teach more or less the same thing we have already learned in MBA programs. MBA is an academic program. MBA is not much applicable in your practical life, especially if you're around your mid-career, because the requirements are very different. So executive education is all about leadership. And leadership is all about habits. And habits are not easy to change. So we need, first of all, we need to see how the brain works. So brain works in small doses. It's a limbic brain, which works very differently. So we need to give a chance to our brain to accept the new information or knowledge in small gaps. So here we are in this program. So every week you go through some of the recorded videos, which are very short videos. So it's good format for you to absorb. Then you come to this live session, and then we talk about that subject for 2 hours. Not much, but 2 hours a week. That's also a good dose. And maybe then afterwards you are having some peer discussion, which is further strengthening your knowledge. Now, peer part is very, very important, peer group. That's another very important, significant element of the adult learning. Because when, as I said, when you are in the academics in the first phase of life, you learn a lot, but there are other people, other classmates and friends, but you don't want to talk about those things with your peers and friends. You just want to play with them, right? And there was not much to talk. We already have enough spent time in the school, college, and universities. Now here we are talking of the practical environment. If you try to learn leadership in a classroom, classroom is not the right environment to learn leadership. Classroom is a fake environment. Classroom is good for classroom activities, academic activities. But look, when you are at the work environment and in a workplace, it's very different. The dynamics are very different. There are politics involved everywhere. There are power games involved. There are people who are cooperative. There are people who are non-cooperative. So it's a very different environment. Even you learn a lot leadership theories in the class. What do you do when you come back to your practical environment? So when you talk the same thing you are learning on your own as well as in live sessions, and you talk to your peer groups in this program, we're also part of the same learning. So you guys, you and your peer group come across the same level of information, right? Now, you may have different experiences, all of you in peer group. You may have different experiences, other people have different experiences, and then you talk about the new things you are learning. Now, imagine, or maybe you have already gone through that experience. Imagine how enriched that discussion is. You bring your own experience that maybe it works with you or not works with you. Another person bring their experience, practical experience from their work environment. If 4 or 5 people, not many, even if you discuss these concepts for 1 hour, you get a lot of strengthening of the understanding of this information, peer group. So that's why I have been emphasizing that you guys could learn a lot more in your peer groups than you could learn through the recorded videos or through my live session. So program structure is that first time you come across any new information through the recorded videos, then you have 2 hours opportunity with me to really go through any Q&A, any further clarification or elaboration required, and then you go to your peer group. These 3 sessions in this sequence would create significant lasting results for you. So since I have been trying to drive MECA CFO Academy, my focus has been, of course, I have gone through a very long career myself. So I exactly understand the typical issues faced by professionals like you, right? So I don't need to really ask anyone that what is your problem. I know these problems, and that is why you find these programs, these contents are very much relevant, as if I have already talked to you. And then that is why I'm offering a solution, right? So one thing about the limbic brain and the neocortex brain, or IQ or EQ, we talked about it. Second thing is that even if you go to these executive trainings, whether it's by Ivy League or another training company or even in-house trainings, usually they are created on the format of the academic education, right? Which means that there is, now they do have some group activity, but not really much. As I said, that you need to replicate that real work environment into a situation where you could learn faster. So if you go to an external training, so in-house, there are some interaction in between the participants because they know each other. But if you go to an external training, you don't know anyone over there, right? And although you could interact, but usually people don't interact because you don't know them. So peer part is missing from most of the training. Peer interaction is missing. A very important element of learning and development. Peer interaction is missing from most of the external trainings. In MECA, I ensured that when you join a program, the program may end. And so first of all, we create a structure and format where you have a lot of opportunity to interact with those peers. But even if after the program ends, you could continue to involve with your peer group. It's all in your hands. Nothing is controlled from our side. I never close any WhatsApp group after the program ends, which means you have a continuing opportunity. Now, of course, everybody is not a leader. So everybody would not take the initiative, but I hope and I believe that in every group there are enough people who have the natural leadership potential, and they keep involving other people into it, not only benefiting themselves, but creating benefit for other people. And they will keep these things go on. They will keep the groups alive, and they will keep developing their leadership journey and for other people. So that's a very important part. Now, even if you go to Harvard, where I have been a couple of times, or Columbia or INSEAD, they say that there is interaction with other your counterpart from other companies, but during the program, of course, but after the program, it ends. It comes to a dead stop. Nothing happens. So that part is really, if you think that if you go to Harvard, Columbia, or INSEAD, you will make good friends in other top position in their companies, forget about it, because that doesn't last. Now, MECA, I created a structure. We have the structure of groups. You continue. So I hope that as a mature professional, you will have the ability to continue your relationship. Final part on this executive education versus what should happen. Again, if you go to an external training, either you have a professional trainer, a person who has spent most of their life or their learning teaching or learning. So they are very good on their subject, by the way. If you go on compliance or audit training, those instructors are very, very talented. They have a lot of knowledge, but again, they're missing the practical part. And that is my big take on it, that you cannot ignore the practical part. So, and if you go to Ivy League or to some other institution, you will find professors. Again, my high respect to professors. I have learned a lot. But look, professors are the talented and brilliant people who have spent their life learning and teaching. For example, if you go to a CFO training, they have not even seen closely how a CFO works, but they want to or they teach CFOs, and a lot of CFOs go there, but they miss the practical part. So they can explain and teach all theories and simulations in an academic environment. What really makes you successful in a practical work environment is missing from them. So I'm not saying that I'm a better teacher or a instructor than professors. I'm talking about, in general, the education systems, that our education system is not working in general. I was trying to observe, I have been doing online for almost 5 years now, so I have some experience. I'm ahead of the curve with most of the institutions. So all schools and college and universities are trying to adopt this system and learn very fast, very quickly. So I always compare MECA CFO Academy as competing with executive education in Ivy League, because that is the quality we try to provide. So my benchmark is not another training company in your city or in your neighborhood. My benchmark is Ivy League, Harvard, Columbia, and SEED, those level of institutions. And I keep watching them, what they are offering, how they are teaching. So I was very curious to see that with this online transition, what format they have adopted. It was very interesting because these institutions have been built on a different format. Look, one thing I highlighted in this recent post 2 days ago, talk about the top business school. I would not take the names, mainly in USA, which are part of the Ivy League. These are located physically in major cities on the most expensive real estate in those major cities. Imagine now, you are a finance professional, imagine the cost involved. And that's one thing only. On the other hand, they have very lavish spending patterns. So for them, it has been very convenient budgeting exercise or planning exercise every year, that they will look at their wish list, what they want to do, all the projects they want to do, and they would list as their operating costs, and then divide by the number of students, and that becomes the tuition fee. No wonder tuition fee for those institutions is increasing 30 to 40% every year, 30 to 40%, without doubt. So there is no sense of cost control or cost optimization. Now, so far so good. They do have very strong brands, no doubt in it. And that brand benefited me. I did not learn much when I was in Harvard, but brand definitely helped me a lot, and brand is helping other people. So based on those branding and those positioning, they kept charging very high tuition fee, and people were paying. And they probably introduced some of the online education program, but not much, because their structure was really based on on-campus training. Now there is, at least for this part of the year, especially in America, there is no viability to really have on-campus program. Every one of them have shifted to online. But the funny part is that online students don't have to commute or travel to the campus, and they don't have to live there. But surprisingly, they are charging the same tuition fee for online programs which they used to charge for on-campus program. More or less the same. There is some difference, but more or less the same. Now, one of the huge benefit of online is the cost restructuring, cost reduction. Look, in this program, we are doing 12-month learning, 120 hours, and you guys don't need to travel. You don't need to commute. We don't have much infrastructure here to recover our costs. So cost of the program was very reasonable, and we maximize the value creation for the stakeholders, right? If you don't have that value creation for students in online program, why would they go there? Why would they go and pay a very high level of tuition fee for that, right? So I understand that their cost structure is such high that they cannot survive without charging that level of fee. So now their struggle is starting, that if they don't reduce the fee to the online education, students have other options. Now, as a learner, If you look around in your computer or laptop, you have opportunities of online learning around the world. You can register anywhere in the world to learn something, and it would be more or less the same quality of education. So I'm sitting here in New Jersey, and you guys are sitting around the world, and we are having very effective communication and learning journey together. So students have a lot of choices. The final part of this is, as I said, that professor part or the professional trainers part, I have high respect for it because I learned a lot. But practically going forward, we need the practitioners, especially, for example, in this program. I have been a CFO all of my life. If I need to introduce some other topics, if I'm running out of capacity, I would prefer to bring another CFO, more experienced CFO, to bring their experience, to bring their insight, and link with some concepts and ideas and frameworks. And that is how they teach you, they train you, they groom you for the next senior roles in your career.